Hello YouTube, this is Asatsu5. This is going to be kind of a quick review of this Rough Rider cotton sampler. And it's going to be a quick review. This knife doesn't belong to me. This belongs to my brother. And I got a little bit of use on it, but not a lot. This is mostly going to be about what you're getting for the money type of deal. What kind of knife you're getting for around $15 to $30 depending on handle material and all the bells and whistles that comes with a cheap knife. So for comparison, I got the Victorinox Cadet. For size comparison, I'm not going to go over the specs or anything. I don't really see it being worth it. Not that this is a terrible knife. It's just this is pretty much legal to carry almost everywhere. If you can carry a slip joint trapper, you can probably carry this. Or Victorinox, for example. So if you can carry a Swiss Army knife, you can probably legally carry this. This is the cotton sampler with the buckshot bone, which is all these divots. They drilled a bunch of divots. It gives you a little bit extra grip, and I guess they think it looks like it's been shot with buckshot. But also has some working on the bowster. It's a barrelhead bowster, meaning it only has bowsters on one side, and it has a R that looks like a H, maybe, I can't tell, but it definitely has an R on it, and then a line. This knife, what's really cool about it, well, one of the cool things about it is that it's very easy to open. It has a very generous nail nick, but you really don't need it. You can pinch the blade and open it. It's very easy to open, and it's pretty easy to close as well. It has a good spring, nothing crazy. You know, it's not going to be up to the standards of a GEC or anything, but it opens relatively easily and it closes very easily. And it also has a half stop, which is good for the price. I think this one was like $23, $24. My brother paid for it on Amazon. You notice that it has red liners, and the red liner for some reason stops right there. This is how it came from the factory, with this unfinished liner. As you can see, it's not really done very well, and that's how it's supposed to look, but it looks like it might have rubbed off, or you can kind of see it on here. The bone is a little bit pink, so it probably washed off or sweated off, or and my brother's had this, but he hasn't carried it on a daily basis, but he's owned it for probably over a month now, and it was like this from the factory, is the point that I'm trying to make. And it seems that that whatever that liner is that washed off right here, that and it's on the inside too, you know, liners all throughout, that it might be a little bit water soluble. But that's not necessarily cool, you know, in my opinion. It is a cheap knife, but you know, just because it's cheap, it doesn't mean that you know, quality control has to suck. But one of the things that irritates me about this blade, or this knife in particular, is the pins, the center spring pin. This one right here, you can see that it's very proud on both sides. So you know, you can feel it when you rub your phalanges across it, thumb and finger or whatever, and so you can really feel it, and that's not cool in my opinion either. So that can be easily fixed at home. You shouldn't have to fix it, but you can just get a little Dremel tool and smooth that out. Now, some interesting things about the cotton sampler is that this is advertised as a cotton sampler, but there's actually two types of cotton sampler knives, or blades in particular. You have this, and then you have a Wharncliffe blade. It's a very wide Wharncliffe, and they're both advertised to be cotton samplers, and they seem to be used kind of interchangeably. You know, they're both cotton samplers, And I don't know the exact process of sampling cotton with these knives. I'm told that this big ricasso right here has something to do with it. And I don't think the Wharncliffe one necessarily has this ricasso. But this blade right here has another name, and it's called a butcher blade. And this exact blade style and knife style has been advertised as a skinning knife or a butchering knife. Not, you won't butcher like huge things with it, but you know, this profile right here with this little hump and a big belly is very common with butcher blades, and it functions, it's like that for a purpose. So when you're skinning up the belly of a animal, you're actually pushing this up with the edge out. That this hump keeps you from piercing the intestines and stomach, you know, the guts. And I've never used this method to skin an animal. I use some different methods, but I am told that this is kind of how you do it. And then I actually use this in another application, but you push it up and the skin kind of rides this area right here, and it doesn't actually come over this wide point right here, so you'll just kind of whoop, slipping it up, and it lays the belly skin open, and then you can start working on the rest of it, you know. But instead of using a gut hook, this is how they zipped the stomach skin open, or belly skin. I use this same method to open mail. I don't have an envelope at the moment, but you stick this in the gap in the envelope and you push it forward, and that paper rides right there pretty much the whole time, and the tip doesn't snag the contents, or at least it didn't snag the contents in my envelope, but you just push it through and it opens the envelope. I generally tend to use Wharncliffe's open up envelopes, but I was very impressed and pleased with how this opened up my mail when I did use it and carry it. But for the price, you get a very stainless steel blade that is very stain resistant. It's a relatively soft steel, but it's going to sharpen and get hair popping sharp very easy. So it might be a good knife to buy if you want to learn how to freehand sharpen and you want to see results quickly. Because if you get a super hard steel and it's dull, and then you try to sharpen it by hand and you're not used to sharpening knives by hand, it can get very discouraging that you're working on it for so long time and you're not seeing any results. So generally when you want to learn how to freehand sharpen, it's better to use a softer steel, because you can see if your technique working on a faster pace. But this is, I don't see that. Oh, that's just this tang stamp right there. I was looking at it. See if it'll focus, and it's not. But I was looking at that a while ago. It's made in China. It claims that it's 440 razor sharp steel right there. 440 razor sharp. Don't know if it's 440A, B, or C. It's probably not 440C, but it's a good cheap knife. And the cool thing about Rough Riders is they make a lot of slip joint knives that are not necessarily in production today. Like Rough Rider makes elephant toenails or sunfish, whatever you want to call it. They're not to the same specs as GEC, but if you want a cheap elephant toenail, Rough Rider is the way to go. Rough Rider makes the cotton sampler. I think Rough Rider still makes the one-hand jack. So Rough Rider still is keeping some of these old slip joint patterns alive that Case doesn't make anymore. And I can't remember if GEC makes the cotton sampler, but If you want to try it, you know, it's a cheap date. Don't expect awesome quality control or fit and finish, but you get a sharp knife or a knife that can be sharp, that cuts very well, and you get a half stop as well, at least with this one. So that's it. I'm a Satsu 5, and I'm out.